Chowder was an iconic Cartoon Network show almost known by more people than the actual soup it was named after. When discussing this show with anyone, the biggest main topic that comes up is always how incredibly good the show was at breaking the fourth wall, or the literal absence of one in the first place.
Let's so hurry! Bring in the next scene!
Sweet dreams! Beans, beans, beans!
What I don't see a lot of is the absolute brilliant puns the show literally launches at you one after another, along with this amazing world that seems so nonsensical and chaotic, yet the structure of the plot and the personality of the characters are so solid that this cartoon falls in a category of its own for excellence. Chowder was a show created by Carl Harvey Greenblatt, which had its first episode air on November 2nd, 2007. The main characters that they focus on the show would be, of course, Chowder, bunny, rabbit, animal-like, whatever hybrid he is, as well as Mung Dahl, the master chef whom Chowder is an apprentice to, Mung's wife Truffles, and Schnitzel, who's basically the sous chef of the kitchen, and personally, my favorite character in the show. The whole cartoon revolves around Chowder learning how to be a proper chef for Mung Dahl, in hopes of one day having the reins passed down to him and be looked at as a true chef. However, Chowder's gluttony for food and his less than average amount of intelligence he possesses gets the trio in a number of situations that provide non-stop comedy gold throughout all 3 short but deliciously sweet seasons of this cartoon gem. First off, the animation of this cartoon was varied and extremely unique. When I say varied, I really mean it. The different types of animation all amalgamated together, such as 2D, claymation, and even puppetry was shown in every episode, whether during the episode or while the credits were running, and it all works so fluidly with one another. Not only that, but the different styles also added to the humor on so many levels. Even the patterns on everyone's clothes were made as one whole layer. Then the characters would fill in over the patterns, so when the characters moved, the designs would stay still, which is what you would call a static background, giving this oddly satisfying feeling to see those textures never move. All this variation really gave a refreshing feeling to me watching it. Each episode after the other never felt repetitive or dull. It was like a guessing game of when I would see Kiwi throw in his 2 cents, or a wacky claymation food scene. Even the puppet snippets at the end of every episode were fantastic. There has never been another cartoon that has used more variations of mediums than Chowder has used. They even won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation. I'm just going to briefly discuss the fourth wall breaks in Chowder, since that horse has been beaten to death since the creation of this show, but I just can't go without mentioning it in some way or another. It goes without saying that Greenblatt and his team, when writing this show, wrote it as if the fourth wall didn't even exist. You couldn't go one episode ever without at least one character acknowledging the fact that they're inside of a cartoon. I don't think there's another show out there that breaks this wall down as much as Chowder does. In layman's terms, these guys were the literal gods of the fourth wall.
We're in a cartoon!
Cartoon?
Now, getting to my real point here is the humor within the writing itself. The amount of jokes peppered through every script of every episode is almost overwhelming. I applaud the writers for having the creativity of thinking of this large amount of hilarious jokes, and clean humor at that. By clean humor, I mean that it's extremely non-juvenile, where they keep it very kid-friendly, but the witty intelligence of these jokes are enjoyable across the whole spectrum of age.
Oh no, the sun is rising!
A lot of these play on words lines that made you think one way, but it was actually another, were constantly prevalent and somehow always got even funnier and more witty, yet would stay so simple. If I were to compare it, it would be like the kid-friendly version of Family Guy's Cutaways, except Chowder used theirs tastefully and sparingly, not in abundance as filler for the episode due to the lack of creativity. There's no absence of creativity in the storyboarding rooms of Chowder, that's for sure.
My first customer!
Oops, sorry.
The subtle humor of everyone being named after some sort of real-life dish, while all the actual ingredients in the show are completely made up with only small similarities, is super brilliant, and I love watching each new episode and being introduced to the new side characters to learn their name, and even look up the type of exotic dish where their name is from. Mung Dahl is a popular Indian dish, Schnitzel is a German dish of fried pork, and Truffles is the yummy fungus everyone wants to shave on their expensive food. Once again, they even touched on this in an episode where Chowder actually got smart and brings up the fact that all their food isn't real, one of their better fourth wall breaks in the show.
Good evening and welcome to another educational feast for the mind, as we proudly present Cooking Talk with Chowder.
I rewatched Chowder in a pretty short span in about a couple of weeks. In doing so, I was able to see some interesting character development, especially on Mung Dahl. The whole first season, you look at Mung Dahl truly as a master chef who knows what he's doing in this zany world of silly ingredients. But the more I watched, you see the show really break him down and show off what he truly is. Thanks to his rival Endive and her apprentice Panini, along with several episodes where Mung's skills is put to the test, you start to see that he really isn't any sort of master at all. He's like the 40-plus-year-old over-glorified line cook who thinks they're all that because of their years of experience, when in the end, they're just burnt out and forgotten in this non-stop evolving world that is the food service industry. The show pointed out that Mung is somewhere around 386 years old, and like they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is shown a lot in episodes like Mung renewing his certifry kit, where in the end he does actually fail for his lack of basic knowledge in his own field, turning him into a recipe pirate. Obviously, this is detrimental to Chowder. It kind of shows that it's not all Chowder's fault for being so uneducated, especially in the field of cooking. The BLTs episode shows this off perfectly, because this aired close to the end of the series, and by this time, Chowder was nowhere near the competency to take or even pass this test. Luckily, this test ended up just being a joke in the end, kind of like every test ever with the American education system. By the end of the series, I really only liked the character Mung Dal for his unbreakable confidence in any social situation, whether it be flexing his masculinity or his hilarious catalog of jokes that were actually funny in the end.
Honey?
Not now, woman. I'm working the room. Make it stop!
At the time of this cartoon airing, it was hands down the funniest show playing on the network. The Misadventures of Flapjack was a close rival, but Chowder was just way more vibrant in both their artwork and the humor. It's an absolute shame that the show's cancellation was due to it not fitting its demographic of older teenage boys, with shows like Destroy, Build, Destroy gaining popularity in the network. C.H. Greenblatt did say he felt somewhat relieved from the cancellation, feeling like a weight was lifted from his shoulders, allowing him to go on to bigger and better projects in his career. I can understand that too. Chowder was a cartoon titan during that time, so the pressure of always having to make sure your next episode tops the one before can be quite a daunting task to fulfill. Most people that don't create something for the public to enjoy don't understand this. Even as a child when the show was canceled, I never put any of that into thought, just blind anger towards Cartoon Network. Now that I'm older, I know that entertainment is business, and business is money, and money makes our evil world go round. The final episode of Chowder is really beautiful and wild, because they end it in a reasonable way, with Chowder actually growing up, taking over the catering company, marrying Panini, and Mung Dal and Truffles get to retire and live out the rest of their lives relaxing. What's wild about this is the anxiety the episode gave me as a kid, because it slapped me with the reality that all good things come to an end. We all grow up. We all need to face our responsibilities and future head on. Cartoons generally hide these feelings from us, as most characters are literally immortal, and this is our little escape to get away from real life and the unstoppable movement of time. So Chowder choosing to go against the grain of this format had me feeling some type of way. The beauty of this ending is the plot itself, where Chowder must recreate a recipe from a cookbook in order to be considered a chef and take over the business. Chowder, who doesn't even know the first step into following a recipe, ends up creating a dish in the end of his own design. The rest of the episode ends in its usual silly and frantic fashion, but this small scene gives a huge message. There is no recipe or set of rules to follow, whether it be in cooking or in your life. Chowder created his own dish, taking a similar but different path than Mung Dal in his life of being a chef. You have to be the one to create your own way of life. There's no book out there that will tell you how to do it how you like. You have to create that recipe for yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed this little humor and character breakdown of Chowder. Please express any thoughts and opinions you have in the comments. I'd love to hear them and read them. And be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. Thanks. Peace, y'all.